Hey guys, so I am here in Vienna this evening with Tommy Robinson for the band interview. So for those who don't know, I was recently denied entry into the UK and placed in a detention facility because I wanted to come in as an independent journalist to interview Tommy Robinson, and they described him as a far-right leader who incites racial hatred. What do you think of this, Tommy?
I'm gobsmacked. Am I gobsmacked? Recently, they've been upping the ante against me. We've seen, this is a Home Office letter you've shown me that says I'm a far-right leader and inciting racial hatred. I've never incited racial hate. I've never spoke about race, ever in my life. Quite the opposite, actually. I only speak about an ideology. That's it, all the time. So when I read that, but recently, I don't know if you've seen, Mark Rowley, who's the head of counter-terrorism, he's come out and he's compared me to Anjem Choudary. He said, we are the same. And Anjem Choudary tread the line, but he slipped up and got put in jail for a long time for terrorism. Mm-hmm. Tommy Robinson's doing the same thing. That's what he said to the public. Just so you know who Anjem Choudary is, he's 60% of the Muslims in prison for terrorism offences are members of his organisation.
Wow.
He wants to throw homosexuals off rooftops, he wants to enslave the world under Sharia, and I want to stop him. And apparently that puts us on a level playing field. But I've been watching, and this has all very recently been getting worse and worse from the government, from the state. That there was a terrorist attack by a man called Darren Osborne who run Muslims over in a van. There was no link between me and him whatsoever, but in the opening of the trial, they lied, categorically lied in court and said that I had sent him Twitter direct messages. Now those lies went all around the world.
Yep.
Every newspaper in the world printed those lies. That days before he went on a killing spree, I contacted him. Complete lie. But then the damage was done. They corrected the lie 2 days later. But people
don't see the retraction, as many people, just a few. Yeah. And it's absolutely insane. I could not believe the way they made you seem. I'm like, I know Tommy. It was crazy. I was like, I know there's no freedom of speech in the UK, but to experience it is completely different, especially at this capacity. But we just wanted to sit down for this interview. I've interviewed you a few times, but I wanted to know more about the time you spent in prison, why you were sent. I know it's all involved with your activism, exposing Islam, because I want people to understand the sacrifices you've made and what you have gone through in your quest to expose Islam. So maybe just to start out, could you talk about how many times you went to prison and why you were sent, first of all? Okay,
yep. So, you know what's happened to you over the last 3 days?
Yeah, crazy.
That's what's gone on for 9 years. With me.
I can't imagine. And now I really see. And like, respect was already high, but now it's like infinite.
So yeah, when they've locked you up, you didn't commit a crime.
No.
You've been in prison for 3 days. Your life's been put in danger with people. And for nothing. Because you want to speak about issues. So basically that's what's happened with me. From when I first started speaking about issues, if I bring you back to 2009, Soldiers' Homecoming Parade, our soldiers were attacked by a Muslim organisation. They were spat at, they called them baby killers, they abused them. And I started a reactionary organisation to that, called it the United People of Luton, which then come into the English Defence League. Now, from the offset, I noticed the tactics by the police, the arrests, the harassment, just non-stop. If I would be here all day if I brought you through each thing, but I'll bring you through the prison sentences, how they got me in prison. So first of all, I was due to go to Scotland. I went to Luton Airport. I was held by Special Branch. Special Branch is for serious crime. They arrested me, they took me to the police station. Then they told me that they're raiding properties linked to me. They went to my mum and dad's house, ransacked the house. They went to my house with my children in with machine guns. And they went to, this was the start of the message. You know, I think they've tried to teach you a message this weekend. This was my first message, which the message was shut up. Now, the day they arrested me, this is when it gets really dirty, when they arrested me, they gave me bail conditions. So they arrested me on a criminal damage charge. They said that when I stayed in a hotel in the city of Sheffield, there was £30 worth of damage done to a door that connects the hotel room door in the corridor. And I fitted the description of the person that done it. And I'm like, that's really why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here for a £30 criminal damage on a hotel door. You've raided my house and my mother's house. And all of this came out. And when it come to bailing me, they gave me bail conditions for 3 weeks. And when they bailed me, the bail conditions were to not contact the English Defence League, not send emails. Okay? My bail date was perfect. I was due to be speaking in the very early days of the English Defence League. You may have heard of the grooming scandal where the Muslim men have been gang raping young English children. Well, at this time, no one was talking about it, and it was still a secret. And the police had managed to conspire to keep it silent and hidden for 30 years. Then comes along our organisation, where we're screaming it on the streets. We're holding banners and placards saying you're raping our kids. We're giving speeches. So I was due to speak in Yorkshire, where Rotherham is, in the same area. And I was due to give a speech on this exact thing. So when they arrested me, my bail conditions were not to enter that town, and the date I had to answer bail was at the exact time of the demonstration I had planned. This was all politically motivated. This whole fabricated case, I actually put in, through the IPC, which is the Independent Police Complaints Commission, I put in a complaint asking how they got warrants, how they got this. And it took me 2 years to get the results, but the results of this actually come out, that they accepted. They accepted everything. They accepted that it was politically motivated. They accepted that they sent police officers on training courses. They accepted they should never have raided my house or my home, but that didn't matter, okay? Because the reason to do it was to prevent me talking about grooming, to prevent me exposing what's happening. So that was the start of a continued campaign. 3 months later, I'm in the same property. The door comes in again. 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what now? And when I said to the police officer, okay, you're doing your job. And he said, I'm sorry, Stephen. I said, what do you mean you're sorry? Just do your job. He said, we're here to arrest your wife. I said, you're going to arrest my wife? Exactly what they've just done now. What I believe they've done to you this weekend was to teach your partner, Martin, a lesson and to intimidate him. And they arrested my wife, who was 6 months pregnant. I said, you're taking my wife, she's 6 months pregnant. What are you taking us on? And they arrested me and her on tax irregularities. You're America's IRS. Yep. We're arresting you on tax irregularities, which this wasn't the tax man, this was the police. They then arrested me at that point, and they arrested my wife, and then they bailed us on charges of money laundering and tax evasion. We were bailed, and we had to answer bail every 6 weeks for 3 years. So we had to keep going back and answering bail. My wife had to sit an 8-hour interview 4 times. Yeah, she come out each time like a broken woman. Now, all of this was the start of a case against me where they charged me with mortgage fraud in the end. They went through, basically, what they'd done is they went through every single member of my family, and they went back 10 years. And they got court summonses behind our backs without us knowing to get all the bank accounts and all the statements and everything to do with businesses and money and finance. And they just dissected and went through every member of my family. They'd done my mum and dad's. They were trying to arrest my mum and dad. They'd done my mum and dad, my wife, me, and all of this was to get me in a position in the end, which is what worked. Because in the end, I stood trial for this offence, I stood trial for tax evasion. And I got a not guilty within 30 minutes, literally straight away. Because I'd given no comment interview the whole way through. And when we got into court and I produced everything and explained everything, I was walked out of court. So then, but I knew this was never about, they arrested my wife, arrested my other family members, they arrested multiple family members. And I told them at the time, and I don't know, the pressure that it brings to have family members crying, your mum begging you, your family begging you, stop, 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 can you see what this is doing here? That's why they're doing it.
Exactly. That's the thing. They know that no matter what they do to you, you're not going to stop. They know, and then they realize, okay, so you're not vulnerable. Let's go after who you love. And then that hurts you, and it makes it a million times harder.
They put me on a financial restraining order. They froze my assets. They closed my companies. At the start of the English Defence League, I owned 7 properties and I had 2 successful businesses. I think my plumbing business turned over £400,000 that year. So we were successful. They froze everything. They closed everything. They used laws that were introduced by the Labour government to deal with terrorists, to deal with me, because I was exposing and talking about crimes from the Islamic community. So they'd done that, they seized my assets, and then they put me under an order I was only allowed to spend £250 a week. And if I spent over that, I'm in contempt of court, contempt of my court order, and I'll go to prison, which was the most difficult thing to try and live with, because I'd always worked, I'd always had ambition, and always had my next focus on what I'm doing. And here I am, frozen, assets frozen, can't work, can't do anything. To be honest, they created me, because if they hadn't frozen my assets and hadn't done all this to my family, then I never would have been able to continue doing it, because I had so much to lose.
Right.
But once they took everything and they put me in that position, and then with my wife, so I've gone to court, I've got a not guilty. That night that I've got a not guilty, in court, as soon as I got not guilty, in court, they stood up and said my wife's name, will stand trial in 2 weeks. They give a date for my wife to stand trial. I then had to go home and sit down with my wife and say, you're in court in 2 weeks. They're trying you for tax. Now, I live a separate life. Anyone who doesn't know, I live a separate life to my wife and my kids. So if we travel somewhere in the car, I'll make them go in one car, I go in another car. If I don't walk the streets because I have people who want to kill me. I've managed all these years on that there's no image of my wife online, which is quite hard in modern day.
Absolutely.
Yeah? There's no images or pictures of her anywhere, right? And I've managed to do that. And now here she is going to be put into a court case. In the court case, when they give her court date, were far left groups and Muslim groups all waiting at every one of my court cases, all the journalists, all the media. So I have to go home and tell her, darling, you're going to walk into court in 2 weeks, you're going to be photographed, and your whole life's about to change. Because when I walk down the street, anyone can see it, I get confronted, I get attacked. Just this week I was attacked again. So I went home and told her that. 5 o'clock that morning, our door goes again. Yeah, it's counter-terror police. And they're there to issue us with an Osman warning. An Osman warning is a government warning that someone is intending to and planning to kill you. Now, the group that were intending to kill us were Al-Shabaab, and this was just after the Kenyan shopping mall massacre, where they killed everyone in Kenya. And I'd been named to be killed at all costs. So then I question, have I? This is all part of a game, all part of a mind game, where all of this is the pressure building. My wife's scared, now the terrorists want to get us. All of this is going on. When I get to court, because I'm in court again the next week, I'm in court facing a mortgage fraud trial. There's no evidence on me. The case what they actually got me on, in the end, it was nothing to do with, I had 7 mortgages, they were all legit. My brother-in-law, my wife's little brother had a mortgage. I lent him a deposit for his first house. And he lied about how much he earned on his mortgage form. He bought his property, he sold the property a year later. This was all 6 years before. It's just the little legalities they managed to bring us into court. I then sit down in court and I'm told that if I plead guilty to the charges I face, then they drop my wife's charge, they drop my friend's charge, they drop my cousin's charge, they drop all of their charges. So then I'm faced with a situation where I get 5 years in. So I say, how long do I get now? And the solicitor said 5 years. I go outside, and funny enough, I documented all this. I've got all of this. I went outside and ran my wife and said, I'm going to get 5 years, but you don't have to go to court. She absolutely broke down because she knew I haven't done the crime that they're trying to put me in jail for. She broke down and we argued, and she said, you can't do that. I've got 3 kids. 5 years is a long time. I went back into court and said, I don't accept your deal. So let's go to trial. Because I know I'm getting a not guilty. Now, the minute I get a not guilty on these charges, I can destroy what they've done. They've closed my businesses. They've ruined my life. They've financially tried to break me with nothing on all these things. But they need me to plead guilty. So then they swore the jury, and I had 3 Muslims sworn in on my jury. Then just before the trial starts again, they say, they offer me another deal. Plead guilty to these charges, which were lesser charges, lesser amounts of fraud. So then I asked my solicitor, how long do I get for that? The solicitor said, you'll get 2 years tops. So I said, 2 years, that means I'm going to serve 9 months in jail. I'm taking it. So, because I want my wife to still enjoy her freedom that she enjoys today. Right. I don't want her to be in danger. So I took the deal. I said, okay, I'll plead guilty.
And she was also pregnant still at this time.
No, she'd had had all the babies. Yeah. Well, she was pregnant. This went on for 4 years. This case, do you know what? It's a hard thing to explain because it did nearly break me. Because I can take a punch in the nose, every day. More so than the destruction and the mental problems from what they'd done to my family. Because I said, when I started talking about Islam or ready to take on Islam, I knew the consequences. I fully well knew people are going to want to kill me. I was ready for that. I don't know if I was really ready, but I was ready for it. But what I wasn't ready for was the full weight of the state. Yeah. Unbelievable.
But as you said, I think they made the worst mistake because they didn't take almost everything from you, leaving something that still made you vulnerable. They essentially took everything from you, creating what you are now and making you absolutely determined.
I'm a stubborn little, very stubborn little. And so I took that deal, and my wife, everything was dropped against her. I pleaded guilty, so they got what they wanted. That's what you've got what you wanted. They then put me to prison, and I was sent to Wood Hill prison. Now, in between this 4 years of this case, I illegally entered your country, and I illegally entered the country in 2012. And I did that because in 2011 I tried to enter America. I was held at JFK Airport. I was deported, and the reason they gave me was that the British had told them not to let me in. They said usually there's a bit of leeway here. We've been completely asked from your side, you're not coming in, like you're going back. So I thought, okay. So the next year come, I think it was the 10-year anniversary, maybe 10-year anniversary of September 11th, and I wanted to go pay my respects, but I also felt that I wanted to give a warning to America, and I felt the warning was that important that I knew what I was doing was illegal. I used a friend's passport, and I come to America, and I actually got in. I got told to go to a waiting room, and I went straight out of the airport.
Crazy. And
I gave a speech. And I knew what I was doing was wrong, but the whole way through it, I thought, if I'm morally right, I wish someone come to my country and warned me 20 years ago, warned our citizens 30 years ago, this is what's going to happen. Now, I've lived in Luton, I've experienced my whole life of Islam, so I come with a warning to America. Now, I wasn't charged by the Americans, I was arrested by the British 6 weeks later, and I was sentenced to 12 months in jail for 2 days in New York. On those 12 months, I spent 22 weeks in solitary confinement.
Which I can't even imagine how that affected you mentally.
No, you're only allowed to do 28 days on solitary confinement for mental health.
They switched you.
What they did is every 28 days, they moved me from one basement of a prison to another basement of a prison to another basement. I went around 5 different prisons. And to be honest, though, I was safe because I didn't see anyone. I didn't see anyone. I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't allowed to go to church. I wasn't allowed to do anything. Every single right that every other prisoner has was taken away, and they used the excuse that I would be killed, which, fair enough, I probably would have been. But I was safe. So, years on, I plead guilty to this charge, and I go back into the prison system, and I'm thinking, well, my profile has risen. More people want to kill me than ever. I'll probably be locked away on my own again. And I wasn't. And I was sent to the maximum security prison called Wood Hill Prison, which houses some of the country's worst terrorists. And this prison, my prison sentence, what I pleaded guilty for was that a form was filled out wrong on my brother-in-law's mortgage form. No one lost no money, no one got hurt. For that sort of offence, you go to a Category D prison in Britain, where you go home at weekends and your family can come in and see you. I went to a maximum security ACAT prison with terrorists, and almost instantly my door knocked, and a prison officer, we call them screws, a prison officer said, when they come to get you, do not leave this cell, your life depends on it. And straight away, no, what now? And he's gone and he's come back. And when he's come back with 2 other prison staff. And he said, come on, Lennon, you're going on B wing. And I said, I ain't going anywhere. And he stepped in. He said, if you don't go, I'm going to arrest you. He was giving me a way out. I said, arrest me then. So he arrested me. And then because he arrested me, he took me to a punishment block. In that punishment block, I have to see the governor before I'm allowed anywhere else. So he arrested me. So then he's made me safe. He's come to see me later and said, do you know where they were taking you? I said, where? He said, on B wing, there's 5 Muslims. 6 months before this, 5 Muslims were caught in a car with IEDs, guns and bombs and suicide notes on the way to kill me. Yeah? They got 30 years in prison. I sat in their court case and watched as they all got sentenced to 30 years. Here I was being given to them in a prison system. And he said the woman, I looked at the governor's woman, the woman who made the decisions. I said, how can this be made?
Exactly.
There's duty of care for your safety in the prison system. They have a duty of care. How can this happen? He said, well, he gave me the lady's name. Her name was Rachel. I wrote her name in my book. And he said, she'll be done for mandatory manslaughter, but you'll be dead. And I said, okay. So the next day I'm waiting to see the governor. My solicitor comes to see me. I go and meet my solicitor. I come back after the meeting with my solicitor, and there's a waiting room similar size to this. And the door opens. And as I go to walk in the room, I see beards. Because our prison system, so Americans understand, because it's going to happen to your prisons as well, if it's not already happening. Yours are racially divided, it's going to become religious. Yeah? Every prison, our prisons, like this prison, is basically an ISIS training camp. All the Englishmen, all the black men, everyone is converting to Islam. The beard is your sign of superiority and your sign of protection. You're part of that gang. Now, I've seen the beards, so I haven't even bothered to sit down. I've stood with my back against the wall. I've waited to hear the door lock. They locked the door, and then it's just, that's where I lost my teeth.
Yeah, you have fake teeth.
Yeah, so thanks. guys. Got some nice teeth out of it. But yeah, but I was beaten badly, and to be honest, the Muslims in that room didn't know I was coming out in that room. I could tell by their faces. As soon as I walked in, I looked at their faces, and they've all looked at each other like, they've just given us. And I was beaten, and then I asked the prison officer afterwards, why would staff do that? And because I felt like a lot of the staff sympathised with me. And he said that what you have to understand is many of these Muslims in this prison, like I was only doing 18, what did I get? 18 months in prison. I was only doing 18 months. These men are doing 44 years. Now, for them, they will hurt the prison officer. They will hurt the prison officer if they don't do it. So they run the prison. So that happened, and then from this sentence, and it wasn't just this sentence so I went through that sentence. So basically I had to fight my way through in many situations, and then I've come out of custody from this prison sentence. And then I've sat down with probation. We have a thing called probation where I have to sit with them once a week. And I've sat down with probation, but just 2 months before the end of that prison sentence, I had a visit. And I got told it was my lawyers. And when I went there was 2 men who were younger than me sitting there. And they said, can we chat to you? I said, who are you? They said, we've come from the Metropolitan Intelligence Bureau. It's a secretive organisation based within Scotland Yard. I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? He said, well, you can help us. You can help your country. Yeah? I said, how can I help you? He said, if you worked with us to unite the right. To unite the right? I said, yeah. He said, so I said, hold on a minute. You're now making an approach. I'm sat in here. You've absolutely kippered me.
Destroyed your life.
You've destroyed me. And now you want a favour from me. You want me to help you. And he said, yes. I said, I've got no interest in being anyone's bitch. I'm brought up in a working class background where there's a law and rules and you don't talk to anyone. So right. I said, that's never going to happen. Yeah, that's never going to happen. And I said, and then they basically said that, I said, what's the purpose in it? They said, if there was a terrorist attack in the UK, we'd then control the response. I was just like, oh my God, the audacity of you.
Yep.
To sit in front of me when I'm sat in this prison cell and you know I've done nothing wrong. And here you are now trying to approach me to work for you. And they said it'd be financially beneficial to you. And then they said, and I said, I've got no interest. They go, it's okay, what are you going to do when you leave jail? What are you going to do now? Bearing in mind who you are. Mm-hmm. I said, well, I managed to hold on to 7 properties, the whole way through this. So I managed to keep the properties, they're all rented out. I said, when I get out of this prison cell, I'm going to sell those properties. They've all risen in value. I'm going to have equity. I'm going to buy a building plot and I'm going to build a house. And he goes, where will you be in 5 years? I goes, I'll be a millionaire in 5 years. I goes, that's me. I goes, do you know what, officer? I never want to talk about Islam again. Because at that point in my life, I never wanted... Yeah. When I was sitting in that prison on the phone to my... Which is perfectly
understandable.
When I was ringing home and speaking to my kids and constantly waiting for someone to stab me and hurt me, I didn't ever want to talk about it again. And then I've come out of prison. And obviously then I'm thinking, right, get on with my life. This is time to get on with my life. And if you look at what I said when I come out of prison, I told everyone, I need a break. And I distanced myself from everyone to try and get my life back on track. I'm then driving in my car and 3 police cars pull me in. And I'm arrested on burglary. So I'm like, burglary? And then when they took me to the police station, they transported me 4 hours away. You know? I was in Hull in the end, up in the north of England. And they were arresting me for a burglary, and they gave me an address to a house that was burgled. I've got all the tape recordings of this interview. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Now, there's many things people have put me by, and I don't claim to have ever been an angel growing up. Yeah? House burglar, no. Right?
Yeah, I don't see it either.
It's never been there. It's never going to be there. The lowest of the low. And when they interviewed me then about this burglary, and then they drug tested me. So in my head, I'm thinking, that's what this is about. If I fail a drug test, I'm straight back in jail for 9 months because you have a licence period. When you get out of prison, you're on licence. If you mess up with anything, you redo your licence. So I thought, okay, that's the situation. That's what this is about. I then get home. I'm on bail. I'm put out on bail for 6 weeks. I have to go back in 6 weeks. I get home and my wife says, Winchester Prison's been on the phone, which was the prison I'd been in. And she gave me the phone number. It was 0207. So I thought, 0207. That's a London number. So I rang the number. Hello? I said, hello, it's the officer who comes to see me from the Metropolitan Intelligence Bureau. He goes, you're in a bit of a predicament. I said, I'm in a bit of a predicament. I said, how am I in a predicament? He goes, what do you think it's going to look like when the media get hold of this? You've been arrested on burglary. I said, you scumbag.
Yeah, what a rat. Gosh.
You scum. And he goes, and you see, if you get charged on this, you're going to sit for 9 months back in prison. He goes, just come and have a chat with us. We can sort this problem out. And I'll be honest with you, I cried my eyes out. I said to my wife, what the hell do I do? There's most things I can think, you can fight your way through something. What am I meant to do in this situation? And in between this, so when I went to prison, I basically signed a guilty plea. And in the guilty plea, they worded it. It was worded that it did not, at this time, it does not bring in a criminal confiscation order. So a confiscation order is where they take your property and money. So I pleaded guilty, but that's not going to happen. When I got out of jail, I kept ringing my solicitor saying, why can't I access the banks? Why can't I do anything? Yeah? She said, we'll wait for the stuff back from the police. Then my solicitor received a letter saying, £365,000 I've got to pay, or I'm doing 5 years in jail. I'm saying, well, how can they do that? I pleaded guilty that they couldn't do that. The wording on the thing I pleaded guilty was at this time. They're then saying, it's not at this time. It's past that time. So we're taking that. So then I get a contact again from the MIB. You're going to have to pay £365,000. We can make that go away. I said, I ended up going to court and fighting it, and the judge ruled against them. But the judge ordered me to pay £125,000 to the police for a crime that I had no financial gain in at all. In fact, I've just been in court 2 weeks ago on this, and the judge and everyone, I've got it all in black and white, I'll give you the documentation. They've all accepted that everything that happened in this case was illegal, okay? But I'm out of time to appeal. So everything they've done at this moment was completely criminal. Yeah? And I've got it in black and white from the defence, the prosecution, and the judge, that what they've done. But what they were doing was putting me in a position then to take my money where they think I have to work with them. Now, this is the dark side of the state. Yeah. And if they're doing this to me at the time, I remember thinking, how many Muslims are they doing this to?
Probably none.
No, because every single time we have a terrorist attack, we find out that our security services have been involved with them. And then I started thinking about high-profile Muslims, and I started questioning everything about what they're up to in the system. But I've then sat down with probation. So I've gone to court. I've been ordered to pay £125,000. I've come out of court, my phone rings again. We can make it that you only have to pay £1 a month. You'll never have to pay it. Come have a chat with us. So you don't get this, do you? This is never going to happen. Okay, leave me alone.
They were just trying to blackmail you.
Yeah, blackmail you. And I said, I'll pay the money. So then I sit down with my probation officer and I tell her, I'm talking at Oxford University. I'm going to give a speech at Oxford University. I said, okay. And I have to tell her everything because I'm on licence. What are you going to talk about? I said, the Metropolitan Intelligence Bureau and the blackmailing of me and the persecution of me and what you've done from start to finish as a system to me. And I'm going to reveal it all at the most prestigious university in the world. And all the evidence I've got on it, because I had the letters from the courts, I had it. I'm going to put it all together in such a speech about what's happening, because people need to understand the future thinkers of our society at Oxford University need to know how dirty this society is. And then, so I've explained that to her. And then they've called me back in. So I'm due to give the speech, say, in a week, yeah? And then someone's tweeted me saying they're going to rape my mother. This is one of the tweets I receive. I receive them all the time. Yeah. I replied back. They said they were in Luton looking for me. I replied back saying, don't need to look for me, I'll meet you. Yeah? I've then gone to see my probation officer and I've been arrested. And they've used the fact that I told someone to meet me and they've recalled me to prison. So I said, you're sending me to prison? And I'm terrified, yeah, going into the prison system, because I know it's like my life.
Naturally, there are so many Muslims in
I'm
there,
dead.
and they all know who you are.
I'm dead, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a game, I'm dead. So when I'm there, the two police officers were there, and my mum's come up. There's two police officers there, and I said, listen, there's only one prison I've been safe in, and that was Winchester Prison. And the reason for that is the demographic community in that area of Britain, there's not many Muslims. So it's a local prison where local people go. So there I was relatively safe. The only place I could probably be safe in the UK. So they said they're taking me to Bedford Prison. But I said, Bedford Prison is Luton's catchment area. It's got every Muslim gang in Luton in there. I'm going to be killed. And they said, no, everything's already sorted. I said, okay, cool, everything's sorted. They took me straight to Bedford Prison. And then when I got into reception of Bedford Prison, it's a small world, because I looked at the man there and I said, have you got a brother? And I knew his brother, because it's my local prison. And I sat there with the prison officer and I went through how many Muslims are in which cells, in which wings, because I know I need to check where most of them are and how long their sentences are. Because if they're doing 6 months, they're not going to murder me. We're going to fight. If they're doing 25 years, they're going to murder me. So when I'm going through, we established that the majority of Muslims were on B wing and the safest place for me was, say, on A wing. Then I said, right, get me on A wing. He said, I'll do what I can. He's gone upstairs, he's come down, and he's just looked at me and said, I'm so sorry. I said, what? He said,
B wing?
You're going on B wing.
Oh, gosh.
I said, but how can I be going on B wing, Bo? Like, and I said, give me a pen and paper. So I wrote 6 pages up of threats against my life, government threats, terrorist threats. Muslims have actually tried to kill me multiple times. So I wrote all this down and said, give that, your governor has a duty to care for my safety. So bring that up to him. Brought it up, come back down. You're going on B wing. I was just like, oh my God. Like, and so then there I am in no doubt that strings are being pulled.
Of course.
To give an opportunity for me to be killed. So as I'm then walking into the prison wing, I walk in and it's like hyenas are waiting as there's three stories and they're cheering as I come in. And I'm like, fuck, oh my God. Like, and I then know if I wait, I have to protect myself here. If I wait, I'm going to get killed. So I walk in and then I get locked in my cell at 10 to 12. Lunch is at 12 o'clock. So as soon as I get locked in my cell, I start shouting to the other prisoners. I said, arguing about their profit and arguing about everything. And then the door opens at 12 o'clock. So I come straight out of my cell because I'm not getting caught in the cell. I come straight out of my cell and I walk into the canteen. I say, who's a Muslim? And then just bang. But that's a self-defense mechanism because I have to, because I know it's on camera. Then I know, so then I'm arrested for fighting with a Muslim. And I'm arrested, and because I'm arrested, I'm punished. And the punishment is...
Solitary
confinement, right? So I'm safe. I'm out. I'm all right. And because I was only in hell for 28 days. They held me for 28 days. I've then come back out of custody for 28 days, after 28 days. And I'm safe. And then I've sat down again with my probation officer and said, you think you stopped it? You just added another 5 minutes on my speech or 10 minutes on my speech. I've rearranged my speech for Oxford University. So then I've got tape recordings of them. So then they've come back out to see me and said, in this, you're not allowed to talk about the police, the Quran, Muhammad or Islam. If you do, you'll go back to jail. So I said, okay, well, I'm still talking at Oxford University. And if you watch my speech at Oxford University, it's one of the best speeches I've ever done. But
yeah,
when I started the speech and I said, the speech I come to give you, I'm not allowed to give you. I will be put in prison if I talk. So I'm not going to talk about any of those issues. I'm just going to talk about my life. And I went through and spoke about my life. And I obviously didn't get recalled. But then my licence has got 8 days left on my licence. And I've paid the police £100,000 out of the £125,000 I have to pay them. And if I don't pay them the other £25,000 within the time period, it activates a 2-year sentence. So I've got 8 days left of my prison sentence. I'm arrested. I get taken to Luton Police Station. I have this excessively overweight police officer who must have been about 25 stone, who come from the Met Police, who said, we can make it easier for you. I said, you can make it easy. I've got 8 days left. Because I'm under this condition where I'm on this licence. So 8 days left, do your best. Like, I don't care. Like, in 8 days' time, I don't care. And then I was transported to Pettibone prison, which I started regretting saying what I'd said. But then his issue again was, we want you as an informant. Right. We want you to work for us. And because I didn't, I was transferred to Pettibone prison. No reason given why I'm in jail. And I know legally they can only hold me for 8 days. But in fact, they held me for 9 because I was due to speak at the House of Lords on the 8th day. So they held me for that. And when I was in there, so I've walked into prison, I've got in reception again at Peterborough, and I've said, we know what's going to happen here. You're going to walk me out there. I'm going to get killed. I'm going to get hurt. So please just lock me in a door and open the door in 8 days. And they didn't. And my instinct, my gut instinct all the time, was on the first day, my gut instinct was to fight. Yeah? But then I'm thinking, if I fight, I get longer. And it's 8 days. And I promised my children, so I want to get home. So I didn't go with my instinct. And I tried to just keep my head down. And on the second day, I'm standing there, and a white prisoner comes up to me with his hand over his mouth and says, you're about to get done with boiling water. I'm like, what? He said, you're about to get done with boiling water. I said, who by? And he said the cell number. I looked over at the cell number, and there's 4 Muslims from my area in there. They'd just been sentenced to 28 years. They cut a man's nose off, his ears off, they killed him. Now, they've got nothing to lose. And he'd paid the Somalian. It was a Somalian boy. He said, he's going to do you a boiling water. Now, instantly, I didn't wait. I didn't even wait for him to turn around. I ran over and got involved. And that was on the police put it on a documentary, 24 hours in police custody. I was arrested and charged for a racial attack. For defending someone from throwing boiling water. In British prisons, you put boiling water, you put sugar. They call it napalm.
So it
sticks to your face, takes your face off.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been in that position. And when I was in that position, so then they've helped, this is during the same 8 days that I have to pay the police the other £20,000. My mum has had to remortgage and get them £20,000. So that's the brief instances of each time I've gone through prison in a short detail. It's gone on for a little while, but that's to show the lengths that the state, the involvement of the state, the dark side of the state, and the intentions of it.
It's really like incomprehensible. I'm curious though, like you've been faced with death so many times. At this point, does it even frighten you? No. And where do you expect that it's going to end?
So I say that it's an empowering moment. You know these jihadis. You know what you see. I see some that are waiting for death row, yeah, in Kenya, and they're all laughing and joking, and they're all happy, and they didn't care, yeah. And then it's only when in those first few years of the EDL, I struggled to deal with a lot of things. I ended up drinking a lot. I ended up turning into a completely different person to who I was, trying to deal with the issues.
Right.
And then once I accepted, like I sit here now and I accept the full reality. At some point, someone's going to get me. Yeah, that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen.
So you're willing to die for it?
But I know that's good. No matter, I know that's where it's going to go. But once I've accepted that, I'm not scared of that. So I walk around, and the Muslims in my hometown must think the brazen neck on this kid. Because I just walk around with my head held high and thinking, and I started wearing a bulletproof vest, and I thought, I'm not wearing a bulletproof vest, I'm not hiding. I'm just going to live my life the way I want to live my life, because I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to know that, and even when I come out of jail, I wrote a book, and that book was mainly wrote for my kids, because I want to tell them this is what's going on, so that you don't pick up the media and Google my name and listen to anything that they say on there, because that's not the reality of the situation that we was in. So yeah. I'm aware of that, and I thought also when I wrote my book that it would maybe lessen the police's attack, and I thought it would expose them and they might start taking a back seat, but it's gone full the other way. Wow. They haven't stopped.
So
I could write another. It's just gone.
Do you think you could be arrested again, and possibly in the future?
I think they're building me up now, currently, which is very worrying. My mum's. It's worrying for my whole family, because when I see the head of counter-terrorism on national TV, bringing my name up alongside one of the country's worst jihadi terrorists and putting us as the same. And then I see them involve me in a court case that had nothing to do with me. And then I read your Home Office letter, which clearly, that's my government. And what they say is I'm a far-right extremist leader who incites racial hatred.
Not letting me into the country simply because I want to interview you.
Oh, they're going to take me out. They're going to remove me from this.
But I got to say, Tommy, at this point you have so much support that it would be one hell of a battle. People will not, at this point, let something like that happen to you without a fight.
So whether they're building, I think that they're building up to remove social media. Yeah? So they put my name in as Twitter direct messages. There was none. In this terrorism case. They opened the terrorist case, one of the biggest terrorist cases in our country. They opened it up with Tommy Robinson Twitter direct messages. Now I think that was to build up so that I can be removed from Twitter, removed from Facebook, removed from YouTube. So I now know that in the next 12 months, I have to build and become the biggest media channel, which is what I want to do, the biggest alternative media channel there is in Europe, giving people the truth so that it's too hard to stop. Like Alex Jones now, they're probably, if they wish they stopped him years ago with his info. So he's got that big, they can't. Yeah.
Kind of on that note, you've recently gone independent. You no longer work for Rebel. I'm so excited you've gone independent. You're going to be way more effective, way bigger. So what's next then?
That's what's next. What's next is, with the help of my friends and my team that I'm working with, we want to destroy the mainstream media. We want to be the voice. People know we're in it for the right reasons. They know we bring them the truth. They know there's no agenda. There's no big money behind us. We're out there doing it every day to bring people the facts. They know it's us that people will turn to. It's us across Europe that people will turn to hear the truth. When there's a terrorist attack, every time there's a terrorist attack, my name trends in everything.
Yeah.
And that's because people are searching for the truth. We want to be that voice. And I'll sit here confidently and say that within the next 12 months we'll be the biggest alternative news network there's been.
And I can't wait for it.
Neither can I. Neither can I.
I have to thank you really so much for doing this interview, because there are a lot of details I've never heard before. I don't know if you've spoken about them in interviews, but it is just very revealing, everything you've gone through. And I think if people really understand how much you've sacrificed, you'll get way more support. You already have a lot, but people need to realize they need to support you, because the amount that you go through, it's not easy.
No, it's not for my wife and my mum.
Yeah.
You know, it's what I like from this is that they tried to ban you coming into my country to interview me. This is going to get far more reach now.
And I have to say that what you've been through, I can't even hold a candle to it.
No.
You know, but also hearing that gives me that much more motivation, because I've hardly experienced anything.
No, but I haven't either. That's the other point I'll make. Is that we have people who are serving on our armed forces for a mere £20,000 a year who are getting shot at.
Yeah, my brother's in the military.
They're having their legs blown off. So in reality, I'm not getting shot at every day. I haven't got a risk of walking out that door and having my leg blown off instantly, which many people walk out every day. So yeah, but yeah, I also am confident. I've seen the change that's happening across Europe. We're sitting in Austria. I've seen the government elected here. We've just seen the Italian elections. We see the growing popularity in anti-Islamic political parties. So we're on the right side of history.
Absolutely.
It's just that they're going to try everything they can to stop it. You've seen what happened with Donald Trump election. It's interesting times. It's the most interesting time right now of my involvement in this. Yeah.
It's just what they have to realize is we're not going to give up no matter what they do to us, and persecuting us in really unjust ways just it just helps us.
It shows.
It helps us. It helps us.
It's like I always say, put a camera here and let someone punch me in the face every day if it wakes people up. The same with when the police do these actions, what they've just done to you, it's just going to wake more people up.
Absolutely.
And so yeah.
So once again, thank you so much, Tommy. I really appreciate it. I will link your Twitter in the description. Thanks. Also, you have a new YouTube channel that you're just putting exclusively your own videos on, which I'll link in the description. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Really hope you enjoyed, and thanks once again, Tommy.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Great.
Thanks.